All right. I'm with Brook Urick, everybody. Welcome to Walk-ins. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you. I love your content. It's so funny. I just love it.
Oh, thank you. How did you first discover my content? Was it the big essay that went out?
It was, but I saw you on trigonometry,
Mm,
like, must have been 4 years ago,
okay.
and, I just what you were saying really resonated with me, and then I read some of your essays and some of your work, and yeah, the "I regret being a slut" essay literally brought me to tears. I think I played your recording of, like, you reading it, and so I was like it was in my ears, and I was just like I stopped what I was doing, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, this is everything I needed to hear at that moment, but also things I had been thinking about."
Hmm.
And you actually turned me on to Louise Perry, who connected us.
Yeah,
So full
yep.
circle.
She's great. It's full circle. She was, yeah, the inspiration for even writing that piece, even though I had already written a version of it. It was just it was like I finally kind of had the right framework to get it into the world. And you've now written a book about, you tell us about your book. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yes, here she is. I worked behind the scenes at a notorious sugar daddy website for 5 years while also trying my own luck as a young sugar baby, and I learned some pretty horrific things. But I think one of the things that drew me to that sort of lifestyle was the sexual revolution and being hopped up on birth control and thinking that I could have casual sex and just like you were,
Mm-hmm.
you think that you're empowered by having casual sex and not caring what these men think. But that is a trick that society has played on us because our bodies don't feel that way. It's like biologically impossible, like Louise Perry says, to not be connected to someone that you have sex with as a woman and to try and employ those male tactics. It just is fatal flaw for a lot of women, I feel like.
Yeah. And how old were you when you kind of, where were you and how old were you when you started getting into like that world?
I was 21 when I heard about the sugar daddy website from a friend of mine who was on the website herself. And I live in Las Vegas, and at the
Did
time
you really
yeah,
need a
right.
website?
I know, enough said, right? Uh,
You could have just
well,
walked out
that's
your door.
and I already was. So,
Yeah.
like, that's part of what drew me to the website in the first place was that I was already living that sort of lifestyle, going out on the weekends, going to the club, like being commodified, paraded around, going out with the rich guys, going to the table with their money. Like, I didn't think much of it. And I thought that that's what I would find on a website like that. Like, I thought I would find a rich provider boyfriend who was going to give me money and who was going to spoil me and, I mean, there's really nothing wrong with wanting that, but the problem is that when you actually join these websites, they're websites for prostitution, like, they're websites that are rife with men looking to pay for sex, and usually it's people that are not professional prostitutes, so it leaves them very susceptible to being taken advantage of, and also they don't know how to charge proper rates, so it's like college girls who are just turned 18 and anyway, so I was already living that sort of lifestyle, so I didn't really think much of it. But I actually joined the website because they had a reality show casting that they were doing. And that's how I think they rope a lot of people into performing in the media, or that's what they used to do back when I worked there, which is they did dangle the carrot of social media or reality star fame. And so that's why I signed up originally for the website in the first place, was because I wanted to be on the reality show. And I did get cast in the reality show, but it was not a reality show at all. It was like a one-off stupid thing. And the way I saw it was like more of an acting gig. I was like, "Oh, like I don't really have any experience on the website. I'd never had a date before." And they're like, "Oh, don't worry about it. Like, we'll tell you what to say." And I was like, "Okay." Like, I was 21. I was like, "This is an acting gig, you know?" And I think that's why they sort of elevated me, because I was already on the site. So they knew my moral compass was a bit bruised and I was willing to lie on camera. So I think they kind of fostered that within me. And it led me to eventually become a spokesperson for the company, like peddling lies essentially. And as a PR rep, you sort of think like, oh, that's just what you do as a PR rep is like you lie to people. And I think that is true to a certain extent. But it took me a long time to really unpack how incredibly damaging it was and the damage that I caused probably a lot of people, which is why I had to write the book to explain
Mm.
how I changed and how my perspective shifted from, a 21-year-old to a 27-year-old who sees things much differently. And, those girls start to look a lot younger. And I felt like it was worse to not do anything about it and to not speak up about it. So
Yeah.
that's kind of where I am now.
So how are you 27 now?
No, I'm 33 now.
Okay, got
So
it.
the book takes place from the
Got it.
time when I was
Yep.
21 to 27, and it ends in 2018.
Okay. Yeah, and you were that was I feel like that was like the height of that. I don't know what the situation is now. It's so much of this existed in like the pre-OnlyFans world, and OnlyFans has made it really just kind of mainstreamed, but I think one thing that I noticed a lot when I was living in Los Angeles as a young woman was there's not much talk about what I would call like soft prostitution. It's not necessarily direct, here's my rate, I'm a prostitute, here's what you're going to charge me to. It's not like this very commercial transaction where it's like you're getting me for this many hours and we're going to have sex in the way that people think of it, even like Pretty Woman. And which is funny. I'm like, an entire generation, my generation of women was primed for this, even having that movie be as huge as it was. My sister and I are always like, why was our favorite movie about a prostitute when we were like teenagers? And
Oh my gosh, yeah.
it's really funny. And then there's like, when I moved to Los Angeles and like the Los Angeles to Vegas pipeline, there's a lot of, it's not overt prostitution. It's more like, I'll help you. I'm paying your rent. Like, it's like a lot of girls I knew had these kind of like soft I guess they were like sugar daddies. And so I don't know in that instance that they thought of, I don't know. What's your kind of feeling on the scale of this? It's
Yeah,
like a
you said a lot of
spectrum.
totally. You said a lot of really
Prostitution is a
interesting things.
spectrum.
It is. I think the prostitution spectrum is actually a really good way to describe it. But I like the phrase you use, soft prostitution,
Mhm.
because that really describes it really accurately. Because a lot of times it is unspoken,
Yes.
and that's actually where the most danger lies, in my opinion. Because a certified professional prostitute knows how to stay safe, knows how to get her deposit, knows what it is and what it isn't, as opposed to a lot of times young, sometimes underage girls who don't know what it is and don't understand the danger that they're getting into. And the problem is the consent is implied in these situations because the man has given you $1,000 and now you didn't really agree to do anything for that money, but you kind of have to do something for the money. And
Mhm.
exactly, yeah. And so when I was working for the company, our goal in the marketing department was to, quote, redefine the modern sugar daddy. And we certainly did that, right? So we redefined that gray area of prostitution, essentially. And it's very confusing for young people who don't want to be prostitutes, of course. Like if they knew that they were signing up for a prostitution website where men are going to message you 500 no condom on the regular, like if they knew that's what they were signing up for, I don't think most of them would join. But they don't think that. they think that, first of all, the fact that the website even exists in the first place is very confusing because it leads people to believe that it's not prostitution or that that's not what you're going to find on the website. Because, as a young person, you think, oh, well, if it was prostitution, then it would be shut down because prostitution's illegal and things that are illegal get shut down by the good old
Mhm.
government. And so you really do believe that. And that's what I believed when I was young is that, because the site even exists in the first place, that was the wind beneath my wings. Like, oh, well, wouldn't it be shut down if such a thing were true? And that's just not the case at all, right? It hasn't been shut down. And I mean, we can get to some of the like legislation in a bit, but that's the first kind of layer of lies that convinces people to join the website. And then the other part of it is the agency that people feel that they have, kind of in line with the new wave feminism of like empowerment and, I'm choosing this and I'm doing what I want to do. And the fact that you choose your own dates and you negotiate your rates and you do all of the setting up, leads these young girls to believe that they do have agency in these situations. But as I describe in the book, when you really get down to brass tacks, you realize that you are in a situation where consent is implied and you really don't have a choice as to what you want to do because you've accepted the money. And I
Mm.
don't think people realize that. I kind of like to equate it to like driving a car on the freeway, right? It's like you can drive a car without insurance, but if something catastrophic happens, you're screwed, right?
Mhm.
And in these situations, sure, maybe nothing bad happens. Maybe you get some money out of it, and all you have to do is give a little head.
Mhm.
Or maybe something catastrophic happens and you're shit out of luck because you put yourself in a situation where consent is implied. And if you do go to the authorities, for instance, for say, like getting raped, they're going to ask you, well, what were you thinking on a site like that? What did you
Mhm.
think you would get? And a lot of times, the people in power, I'm not going to name any names, but people in power, litigators, policemen, they're users of these types of websites, or
Mhm.
they are people who pay for sex themselves. So they're inclined to make the girl feel like she is at risk of being charged legally, like at legal risk, because they can say, well, you were prostituting. And I've heard of all kinds of cases like this where the people tell the like policemen or whoever tell the girl, well, if you sign your rights away, then, we won't charge you for solicitation and prostitution because you shouldn't have been doing that. And
Mhm.
it's that shame and like being scared and the secrecy and the discretion and all of this that keep victims silent and keep the predators going on to the next one because it's almost impossible for them to get caught. The website is intentionally anonymous and it is the product itself. These websites are designed and curated to protect predators through intentional anonymity. And when you
Mm.
first join the site as a young girl, you see all of these signs that say, oh, don't use your real name, don't use pictures, like be anonymous, and you think, oh, they're trying to protect me from stalkers or from whoever. But in reality, when you really get down to it, you realize that they are doing that to protect predators
Mm.
because they hide behind their terms of use. So if anyone does come forward and say like, "Hey, this guy sexually assaulted me," they say, "Well, did you file a police report? Did you get a subpoena?" Like, well, it's against our terms of use to give out any personal user information. So unless you filed a police report and have a subpoena, there's nothing we can do about it. And that's that gray area that is very dangerous, and that is where these websites like to hide.
Mm. Yeah, I think too the reason it's weird. Like, how would you define a sugar daddy?
A man who likes to pay for sex but doesn't wanna consider himself a John.
Okay.
I mean, sometimes it can be someone. I mean, more the majority of sugar daddy user accounts, which, by the way, they've completely scrubbed any sugar daddy vernacular from the internet. They don't use that term anymore because it's too closely associated with prostitution. So now they don't even use that term anymore. But back when I was working there, they did. And the majority of sugar daddy accounts were married. So they're looking for affairs. They're looking to discreetly pay for sex from young, sometimes underage girls. And I mean, I would say the majority of them are missing something, be it like a conscience or emotional maturity, or, they just kind of pay for everything else in their lives. So they kind of just like want to pay for girls too, and they just want it to be easy.
Mhm.
So that's how I would describe a sugar daddy.
And do you think that women are aware that it's prostitution, or is it a way to kind of feel like they're not prostitutes?
It is a way to feel like they're not prostitutes, and, like I mentioned earlier, the fact that the website exists, right?
Mhm.
The, agency that you have setting up your own dates, and then also a lot of times it's unspoken. So, the man gives you $1,000, and then you didn't ever say, "Hey, my rate is $1,000," but also, like, you're happy with $1,000. So then it's like, well, what are you gonna do for it, And then you think, "Well, oh, well, I wanna get another $1,000, or I don't wanna displease this man," or maybe you're already wearing the dress and the shoes that he bought you, so even if you do say no, it really doesn't matter because you've set yourself up for him to take whatever he wants from you, and that's what happened to me, is that I was in a situation like that where I found out quickly that, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna physically fight? Am I gonna run out the door in the shoes and the dress that he bought me?
Yeah.
Like, what am I gonna do? And I don't think that people realize that that's exactly the situation you get into. And most of the time, like young girls especially, have been conditioned to disassociate from sex. I think a lot of the people that turn to prostitution and sex work were abused at a young age, like I was. And so you don't think about those things as deeply as you do when you get older,
Yeah.
because and then that's part of why I wrote the book, is because I want young people to understand that the pain of those situations, it doesn't go away. It doesn't fade like grief from losing someone. That's not what happens. It multiplies and compounds over time. And that's why men like young girls, because they don't have all of the pain and trauma and baggage of older girls.
Mhm.
So I think that, is something that no one ever explained to me, and I think it's some of what you unpack in your writing, is that, you don't think about how your body is going to feel later, and you don't realize that the consequences of your actions actually take place within you instead of in the world around you, and that's very difficult for young girls to understand who don't have consequence mindsets.
What do you think about now the OnlyFans, and is there more of this? Are young girls more drawn to this? Is there a backlash? As you wrote this book, where do you think we are now in the because it seems like a lot of women are having less sex. When they poll the younger generation, just on a whole, they're having less sex. I would argue a lot of that is because they're just getting their dopamine hit from the internet, and they're not, maybe they're sexting, and men are maybe using porn more. But where do you think the young kids are today with all of this?
I have so many hot takes on OnlyFans, and mostly that it's horrifying. I think I read a statistic that was like something like 10% of girls aged 18 to 23 have an OnlyFans, like based on the numbers of like how many OnlyFans users there are, creators there are, and based on the number of total 18 to 20 whatever year olds in the country. It's like something really horrifying like that. And again, it's very similar to the sugar daddy situation, which is where they desensitize these girls into giving it away for free or very low cost, because the vast majority of sugar babies, the vast majority of OnlyFans creators do not make any money, make hardly any money. And the point at which you make enough money to make it worth it, that's how many people you've slept with. That's how many people have seen you naked with who knows what in who knows where.
Mhm.
And I think there's going to be a reckoning maybe in like 10 years of all of these girls. But I think the other part of it is, with as an OnlyFans creator, there is a layer of removal between you and the people who you are engaging with, right? Like it's OnlyFans is quiet in a different way because you don't have to actually physically see anyone necessarily. Though personally, I know top OnlyFans creators, and all of them are prostitutes. That's where they make a lot of their money is
Mm.
is the men who want to reach them on OnlyFans pay them high amounts to have sex with them. So
Mhm.
I think I would say if I had to guess, I would say 90% of the top OnlyFans creators are also prostitutes.
Wow.
Not all of them maybe, but I would say most of them probably are.
Mhm.
Just because that's how you're gonna make extra money, and all you have to do is, for 30 minutes or whatever, and when you're a top OnlyFans creator, you're highly paid. And I think the sugar daddy thing is quiet in a different way, right? Because you can hide that, like, you don't ever have to tell anyone about that. You're not, like, all over the internet doing that, but you have to physically do it. So
Yeah.
I think it's, like, 2 sides of the same coin, both equally damaging, and I think the sugar daddy phenomena, I think a lot of people like me are, like, coming of age now, and they kind of realize how messed up it was, and the things they got roped into and the shame that they buried, and they're able to kind of quietly forget that and just, like, push it to the back of their mind and move on and have a family or whatever it might be. But I think the OnlyFans creators are not going to be able to do that. I read a really interesting essay from, like, a 50-something OnlyFans creator,
Oh,
and
wow.
she's making a lot of money, but she has this paragraph that's, like, really sad in there where it talks about the fact that she did this to provide for her young son, and she is incapable of having a romantic relationship because she knows that people will fetishize her, and she fears the day when her son becomes of age and is able to see these things. So
Mhm.
I just think there's gonna be a lot of repercussions that people aren't quite ready for.
Mm. Is she like again, there's like this spectrum because so many of the people who are on OnlyFans are like, well, I'm just selling pictures of my feet. you know, like there is, I do understand. I don't understand it from like a soul perspective, but I understand why you would want to do something like that instead of doing a shitty waitressing job where you're degraded all day and don't make as much money and it's much harder. Like I get it. I logically can understand how somebody would get to that point where they're like, I'm just gonna sell pictures of my feet online because I'll make a lot of money doing that. Although I am interested to there will also be a reckoning with AI. You know, as AI comes in and starts like, why would you don't need a woman. You can just have an AI generated. So there's an even weirder level now of somebody who wants to get into that industry. It doesn't even have to be a woman. It can just be a guy who makes AI of, feet, like feet fit, whatever. Or a woman who's doing it. I don't know. It's like it's going to get very weird. But a lot of women are going to be out of business.
Yeah, I think it's already gotten so weird, but I think that the problem with a lot of these OnlyFans creators is, like, if you are gonna make money on it, you have to do, like, increasingly crazy shit in order
Mm.
to attract a following and in order to make any money. Like the Lily Phillipses and the Bonnie Blues of the world who are, having sex with all these guys, and I don't know if you watched that documentary with Lily Phillips about her endeavor.
She had sex with
Um
1,000 guys. Is that or 100?
It was
How
the one
many?
that had sex with 100, yeah,
Okay.
and at the end of it, she's crying, and
Hmm.
she says, like, "Yeah, I just disassociated from, my body," basically.
Hmm.
I'm paraphrasing, but, yeah, I think that's what a lot of OnlyFans creators and prostitutes are really skilled at, is disassociating from their bodies, and that becomes more difficult over time, and it just really kills you. And on the side of the guys, I think well, obviously porn has played a huge role, but I think most men that are talking to top OnlyFans creators, I think most of them have to know that, like, if she has 1,000,000 subscribers, like, you're not talking to her. And I
Mm.
know I know top OnlyFans creators, and they have agencies that they work with who have chatters who
Oh
are a lot
yeah.
of, like, gay men or, like, people in the Philippines and
Yep.
stuff who, like, chat with these men,
They have teams.
and they have whole teams of people who chat with these men,
Yeah, you're
and
probably talking to a, like, a lady boy in Thailand if you're chatting with one
mhm,
of these people.
100%, but to them, it's a step up from porn because
Mm.
porn already isn't real. You're
Mhm.
already a voyeur, it's already fake. So to have it be interactive, it's just like you said with the AI stuff, like, well, it's a step up from porn, like, at least it's
Mhm.
interactive, at least I feel something. So I think that's a whole 'nother can of worms that is like, what is it doing to young men, you know? I shudder to think, honestly.
I was when I was writing for Playboy, I went and watched a woman, and she's a porn star, and she was getting, like, completely shot for VR. So it was wild. She had cameras all around her. She's basically, like, in this cage of cameras, and they were shooting her so that they could do the, like, VR porn base where you're, like, there. I was like, this
Right.
is all gonna get very, very weird very quickly. I don't know though. I'm not sure. It's so easy to become kind of like prudish about it all too. That's kind of the overcorrection is suddenly sex becomes this kind of taboo thing again, and it becomes um shameful in general. And I'm not sure. It's weird. I feel really, it's funny because working at Playboy is very connected to, like, a lot of the stuff and the trends, and I feel so disconnected from it all now. I mean, sugar daddy seems positively quaint by OnlyFans standards in a weird way, even though it's, like you said, two sides of the same coin. It was like that was coming on the heels. So much of what I grew up with kind of primed the culture for this. So that ultra female empowered sexual in your face, you saw the sexualization of all these poor Disney girls. You had Britney Spears and all of her kin who were all traumatized by what they basically had to endure. You had Girls Gone Wild, which was huge when I was a young woman, and people forget about that, which was just women showing their boobs for free. I mean, nobody got paid for that. They were just showing their tits everywhere. And
Oh
so
my
there were,
gosh.
like, all of these forces in the culture that were already kind of greasing the wheels for women to easily slide down that slope into sugar daddy, and it was everywhere in Los Angeles. And then the argument that these women would make is, how is it any different than a woman marrying a rich guy? You know, they're like, they don't see any kind of part of this. I think is trauma and dissociation, but they would be like, how is this different than if I was just like a kept woman only married?
The difference is the ring and the contract and the
Power.
stability
Yeah.
and the power, yeah, the actually having a little bit of power and not
And
feeling like
love.
and yeah, love, maybe like a family, like
Yeah.
Christmas is together. I don't know, like, there's a few differences if you ask
I mean, I
me.
agree, but I've heard a lot of the arguments against this. You know, the women who want to remain kind of perpetually liberated.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that, like, a broken clock is right twice a day. I'm not saying that there aren't, like, liberated, empowered prostitutes out there who just love having sex for money. Like, I'm sure, right? I'm sure there are a few of them,
I
but
actually
that,
interviewed
like,
one on this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, but I question it too because I mean, I worked in this industry for a long time where we were just lying a lot, and, like, we paid girls to lie on camera, like, we would tell girls to, like, tell the camera they had don't have sex with anyone and this and that. So it's like you have to assume that some of it is lies they tell themselves and lies they tell the camera to perpetuate, like, a certain idea. I mean, I didn't watch the interview or anything, I don't know that person, so I'm not saying they're lying, but I'm saying that I know there are a lot of lies that are perpetuated in these like types of scenarios for one reason or another. So I just really question how much you are in control in that
Mm.
situation. Like, are you doing it because you need to, because that's your stream of income, because you can't get another stream of income, because you're out there in the world as a prostitute, as a porn star, whatever? Like, I think I would say most of the people in my experience who are prostituting are wanting to get out of it, or they're victims, or they don't like it. So to paint with a broad brush and say that this splinter minority of people is representative of the whole group, I think that's a problem, and I think it's something that, politically they love to do, right? It's like the
Mhm.
same thing with the abortion argument. It's like, "Well, this 12-year-old was raped by incest and you don't want her to have an abortion." It's like, no, like, why don't we talk about the fact that most abortions are birth control? Like, let's
Mhm.
talk about that. I mean, I I I think people should be able to get abortions, like, whatever. I'm not It's not like that, but I'm just like, why can't we talk about the real majority of people? Why do you have to, like, politicize it and talk about this, like, splinter fraction of people who are empowered or who are 12-year-olds or whatever? It just, like, it doesn't make any sense to me. I feel like it's very, like, sensationalized rhetoric that's used to just, like, divide people.
How did you come to terms with, those years that you were basically like like Ghislaine Maxwelling for the site?
Yeah, more or less. I think I was doing a bit of that. I wasn't, it wasn't recruiting though. So I was never like, "Hey, you girl, come join the site." It was
Mhm.
marketing. So,
Mhm.
I mean, the way I lied to myself at first was that, like, this is marketing. This is what you do in PR, like spin and all of this. And of course, I was like 22 at the time, so I didn't really know anything from anything, and they groomed me in a way to believe certain things and to act a certain way. But also, for the majority of the time I was working for the company, the website legally actually did operate in a gray area. So I told myself that, well, the site would be around either way. The site is technically legal. So even if I wasn't working here, the site would be around. And I started what was called Let's Talk Sugar, which was like a YouTube channel and a blog site and like a content hub and a forum for sugar baby advice. So that was like my gift to the community, basically, like me trying to tell people, like, it's dangerous and these are the things you should watch out for. This is how to get your money. And I had no idea what I was talking about because I was not succeeding at the lifestyle. I was, like, literally just peddling a bunch of, like, lies that they spun up in dark conference rooms. But in 2018, there was actually legislation that was passed, called FOSTA SESTA. Are you familiar with it?
Mm-mm.
So, do you remember Backpage at
Yep.
all?
Yeah.
Yes. So Backpage was like a very overt, like, classifieds website for prostitution, right? It said like $300 per hour, like this girl. And the website was shut down in 2018 as a result of this legislation called FOSTA SESTA, which is like the Freedom of Human Sex Trafficking Act or something to that effect. And basically, it states that websites that facilitate, assist, and support prostitution and sex trafficking are no longer covered by Section 230,
Okay,
which
yeah.
Section 230 is the clause in the the Communications Decency Act of 1996, right? So it was written like 1,000 years ago when no one had any idea what the internet would become. And it says that websites are not held criminally responsible for the content that third party users post,
Right.
which, great, good, fantastic. But also, dating websites in particular operate in this gray area where they are not liable for anything that happens between their members
Mhm.
because it's third party.
Right.
So that little clause, which, covers the Facebooks and the X's and all of that of the world, that also used to cover websites facilitating prostitution. But in 2018, that changed. And I think at the top, you mentioned that things have changed a lot. You don't see the sugar daddy stuff anymore. And that is by design because they have completely shed their skin, scrubbed their previous image from the internet. They're masters of digital marketing. So everything has been rebranded, revamped, and completely shifted in order to code as more vanilla. and obfuscate justice. And to
Mm,
great success because the website is still around, but the core member base, of course, is men who want to pay young, sometimes underage girls for sex.
mm. I did a really dark piece when I was writing for Mel Magazine about the single men of Ashley Madison. And so I had to like lurk around in Ashley Madison, and it was so dark. It really it took me maybe the longest I've ever taken to finish a piece because it was so dark just in that world. And then interacting with some of the people and having it was very I was like, I don't know, gonzo journalism for women can get a little wacky. It was just very, very dark place, and they're still around.
Yeah, well, I love that you mentioned gonzo journalism because that was very much like my mindset writing this book. But as far as Ashley Madison goes, did you get into the weeds about like how a lot of their female users were bots?
Yeah, it seemed like no, there were not many real women there at all, and a lot of their
No.
female users are bots. And it's weird you would go there after everything that happened with that website, but they seem clearly unbothered by that. And I think part of the reason that it got kind of dark is there, you know, there are men in kind of loveless and sexless relationships who are just in those relationships still for the kids or for whatever. And they were very sad. Like those stories seemed very lonely or sad, and I'm sure there are women in lonely relationships. They're just not necessarily, there weren't not many women on Ashley Madison, but there does seem to be a lot of men who are in kind of stagnant relationships.
Yeah, I mean, that's the cheaper to keeper scenario, right?
Mm.
Well, if you're interested a little of the lore of Ashley Madison, so the founder of Seeking Arrangement was the website that I worked for, and the founder of um, Ashley Madison, which was Noel Biederman, I believe, they were friends for a long time, and they had a falling out, and Noel created Ashley Madison. My former CEO created Seeking Arrangement
Mhm.
because the divide was that like Seeking wanted to be open about cheating on your wife, I guess, or be like open and honest about whatever. But then Noel created arrangement finders, which was like basically the answer to Seeking Arrangement. And there was like a marketing war. They actually sued each other a lot for like
Uh,
copyright infringement and stuff like that while I was working there. But yeah, I was working there during the Ashley Madison hack. And that was very interesting because it was like they got what they deserved or whatever for like not having an encrypted website essentially. So
mhm.
during that time also they Seeking like beefed up their encryption and such because they were also at risk of I guess hackers targeting them or whatnot. So anyway, just some of the history there.
That's really interesting. It's a very it's yeah, it seems like it's so, I guess I just take for granted how normalized it's all become. All of it. It seems so normal. Like the OnlyFans thing is it's very normal. It's they get, I think unfortunately too, like you said, it encourages kind of more and more extreme behavior. So even if people go on there because they're like, hey, just open an account. Like, what's the big deal? You don't have to, you can just post content. You don't have to post sexual content. But then again, there's this like reward for you to do that. And I think people get sucked into it even if they open it just to just like post their whatever, like comedy clips, you end up, and it's just easier to do it there. People are asking you to do it, and then you're like, well, why not? What's the economy's not great.
Yeah, it's like this apathy, and the exact same thing happens on Seeking Arrangement, which is that you join it and you think, "Oh, well, it's not prostitution, right?" Like, they say all over the website that it's not prostitution, so I'm just gonna join and see what happens, but then your inbox is flooded with a bunch of people, like, wanting to pay you very low rates for sex, so you're like, "Oh, but I'm desperate for money," and, "Oh, like, what's the big deal?" You know? Like, what and I think you and I like to think me as well. I think we're on the cusp and like the cutting edge of the shift of the pendulum going the other way. Because right now it's like going really far towards the OnlyFans side where it's just
Yeah.
so normalized and everyone like Denise Richards and her daughter both on OnlyFans, like fan freaking tastic. So no pun intended.
Yeah.
But I think we're slowly going the other way. Like if you see Black China, have you seen some of her like speaking out like content that she's
Mm-mm.
doing? So she was like a top OnlyFans creator, but now she like found Jesus and like got her lip filler dissolved and like is talking about the fact that it was a horrible idea and that it made her broken. I'm paraphrasing. But I think what she's saying is where a lot of people's heads are going to be at because, she's coming of age, she's getting older, and you can't really anticipate how much your brain is going to change when
Yeah.
you're an 18-year-old versus a 27-year-old.
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly what I wanted to convey in my book, which I wrote in first person present tense because I wanted to convey like how I was feeling at that time and then sort of explain to people like how your perspective will change dramatically. Obviously, after experiences that you have, but also when your brain is done forming. And it's really hard to explain like how stupid you were when you were young
Yeah.
and you just can't really fathom it until you're older. So that's but I think what you said about the kids not being, not having as much sex and not being inclined to that, I think that is true, which is why I think like the pendulum is shifting the other way. But also I saw like a stat, which is like 40% of Gen Z think like an AI relationship is appropriate or is like a good idea or something. So it's like that's the other side of it is like, well, they're not, yeah, like you said, they're not having more sex because they're just like on OnlyFans and like using AI or whatever. So I don't know. Hopefully we can save the children.
Yeah, I don't know what it's weird having a kid and seeing all of this. It's so different than I really have. There was a video going around last night, and it was a woman asking her 13-year-old daughter what things from the 90s were. And
I saw that.
yeah, this is even older than you. And it's like she knew none of these things. Nothing. Not what a yellow page is, just for the audience who
Burning a
hasn't seen it,
CD.
burning a CD, Blockbuster, all these things. And I was like, God, she isn't that. I mean, are we that far away from that but I guess we are. And I'm like, I said to my husband, I'm like, our daughter is going to be even further away from this in 13 years or 10 years. I don't even know what. I feel like this is why I know we're on that exponential curve towards the singularity or whatever, where it's that everything exponential of the internet, because you could kind of conceive of what the world would look like pre-technology, things were moving pretty slow. And now it's like, I don't know. I mean, my husband's like, she probably won't ever need to drive a car. And that actually is true. She might never need to learn how to drive, which is bananas to
Yeah,
think about. But that I see these Waymos all over Austin. They're everywhere. And by
it
the
is
way,
bananas.
as a woman, it's way safer to get into a car that's a robot than a freaking complete stranger.
That is very true. But it also just like begs the question, like, what parts of our brains are we going to lose if we're not, like, if we're just watching, Peppa Pig all the time and like not driving and like using AI to communicate? It's just like, the Henry Kissinger essay. He's like, there's going to be the programmers and the programmed. So
But
I
hasn't that
fear
always
being
been
the programmed.
true?
Totally.
I
But
mean,
you thought it was gonna take a lot longer though. It's like,
I
"Oh,
don't know.
no."
When you read, this is why I want to read more books about the printing press, when the printing press, because I had Sarah Siskind on, and she and I were talking about a lot of AI. She's very pro AI, and I'm more pro AI than I think against it. Although I'm very wary of it. I I she was like, if you read the articles and the opinion pieces and the way they talked about the printing press when it came out, it sounds a lot like the way we're talking about AI and other technologies. I lived through like the television panic, which again seems positively quaint now. Like, oh, gathering around a TV sounds like a really cute family thing to do. It's not, and everybody was freaking out about that. And I've been pushing back against a lot of the freak out I see around the phones where I'm like, guys, this feels a lot like a moral panic. I'd like to see more studies. I have lots of family members and nephews who grew up with phones and around that time, and they are fine and in the world and very much present and active and well adjusted, and not all the things that these people say. I don't know that every single kid with a phone is depressed. And I also think it's funny to be talking about phones in schools when you have AI here. And like, okay, what are you going to do about education? Because no, how are you going to justify telling a child to do their homework? Like, what are we doing, guys? That conversation, we should have had that before you let the phones in the schools. I feel like that so a lot of it is weird, and a lot of it is connected to your book, your experience, my experience, because the internet was made by porn. I saw this article the other day that was all about how men are now saying, because in much the same sense that you have to do more and more extreme things to make money as an OnlyFans creator, men were saying they were getting fed younger and younger women, and it was taking more and more for them to get off, because it's that same side of the, other side of this coin, and it turned them into pedophiles. So like, are we minting? Because I was saying to my cousin, I'm like, are there just pedophiles? Were there always this many pedos, or are we making pedos online?
I actually start my book with a scenario where I was 14 and I was preyed upon using AOL Instant Messenger
Oh yeah.
with a guy that was 26, who preyed upon me and told me I was so beautiful and perfect and knew just what to say and whatever. And would he ever have been able to do something like that if AOL Instant Messenger didn't exist?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that's like the early stages of it. But I think more and more you have to think like pedophilia doesn't start when you're 50 preying upon a little, like it starts when you're like 25 preying on a
Mm.
12-year-old. So yeah, I mean, I would argue that, yeah, I think pedophilia has gotten a lot worse and more prevalent with the age of the internet because of the anonymity. You can hide behind a screen like never before, or not before you could do that previously. So yeah, I think there is definitely an argument to be made there for sure.
Yeah, it's very creepy. I
Yeah,
the
so sick.
Yeah, and it's not, um AI makes it even worse. There's a story I was reading about Japan where this is why I don't put images of my kid online, but in Japan they have this huge problem where there's the people they're making AI pedophilia videos with the available images of kids from online.
I know, I've heard of that as well, and it just begs the question, like, okay, are we saving the kids because, like, now they don't have to do this, now they don't have to appear in this or whatever, or are we making it more dangerous for them because we're allowing and encouraging and enabling that kind of behavior?
But also now
So
there's all this stuff like with young women that they have to deal with where their images are put on porn, and it's like that can haunt you forever even if it's not true. It's psycho. I don't know. I don't know. When I get into too much in the weeds and all this stuff, I am like shut it all down. It makes
yeah.
me want to just like flip the switch and be like shut the internet down.
It's best described as a dumpster fire.
Because thank you. Because the porn elements of it are always at the frontier of all of it. So the arms race against porn, pedophilia, all of the child pornography, we're always losing to it constantly.
Yeah, I'm hoping the pendulum is going the other way with porn as well. I think more guys that I talk to these days, like the more like spiritual minded kind of guys, don't watch porn anymore. Like they understand that there's a direct link between porn and erectile dysfunction, and
Ah.
you're not going to be able to get off with a woman, like maybe your wife, if you continue down this path of like more and more severe and crazy pornography. I mean, I don't watch porn. I haven't watched porn for a long time, but I think that's, I think it's something people really need to consider. Like, how is it shaping your brain?
Especially the young guys. What do you do now?
Yeah. I'm a writer. I do marketing consulting, and I have several different projects I'm working on as far as writing goes.
Okay. And how long have you been kind of out of the game? I mean, what is it like in Vegas? I heard that Vegas, like side note from all of the, stuff you're talking about in your book, I heard Vegas is not doing well.
I mean, more or less. Well, I stopped using the website while I was still working there because
Mm.
the group of people that were on there just so unsavory that I didn't want to even try it anymore. So around when I was 25, 26, I like stopped using sugar daddy websites at all. But I mean, as far as Vegas goes, it's an interesting time here because there's like new resorts that have been built but are like completely failing, like the
Mm.
Fontainebleau and like Resorts World. I think they had this idea that if you build it, they will come. And that's just not true, unfortunately, because like you've got the win right there. So like people who are loyal to their casinos, like the big ballers of suspenders, they're not going to go to the Fountain Blue. And I think people, like especially the Fountain Blue, like kind of overestimated how many people would be interested in such a thing. It's like, well, there's like 27 other casinos. Like, why are people going to go down way to the north end of the strip to see like art? Like it's not Miami, it's not Art Basel. Like nobody really cares. And so they're losing a ton of money,
Mm.
unfortunately. But it's I guess that's the risk they took. Fountain Blue was built like 10 years ago. The building was built like 10 years ago, but they like lost funding or something. And so the building literally sat vacant for like 10 years and then
Whoa.
was sold to MGM and was sold to this and that. And then finally it got sold back to the Fountain Blue and they just opened like a couple years ago. But yeah, I think people are not spending like they used to here. So it's been really interesting. But there's also like F1 that moved here, right? And it's been, I guess, good for the mega casinos, but really, really terrible for like the locals. There's some really interesting like documentaries and stuff about how it's affecting the locals, which is just like terrible traffic. Like people who work on the strip can't get to their jobs, like physically can't get there. They have to leave like 3 hours early. So literally the only people who benefit are like the mega casinos. And it's just like another illustration of like the rich get richer and
Yeah.
the rest of us just have to pick up the slack.
And
So yeah, I mean, I could go on for a long time about how it's going to change. I moved here in '07, so I've been here a long time.
oh, interesting. Yeah, it's weird because I saw after the Super Bowl they were talking about how they like nothing was booked. It was the lowest, like all the hotels were empty and everybody in the mentions of this comment talking about the stats of Vegas basically like being dead during the Super Bowl, which is kind of unprecedented. They're like, well, yeah, you charge for parking. You've like nickel and dimed all your customers. It used to be free and fun, and families can't afford it anymore, and people can't afford it. I think, and this is my theory, as online gambling has gone mainstream, people don't need to go to Vegas. They can just gamble in their underwear in their room.
Oh, 100%. I think that that has led to the demise in a lot of ways. But yeah, also the prices of things, like it used to be so cheap and they used to give out free rooms all the time, especially to locals who were players.
Mm-hmm.
They would like, I don't gamble, but my mom does, and she would always get flyers in the mail, free room here, free room there, and, like, she never gets stuff like that anymore. And yeah, the parking, most of them do offer free parking for locals for up to 3 hours. So if you wanna, like, go down there and get dinner or something like that, like, usually you get free parking. But other than that, it's like, yeah, now you have to pay $25 for parking. Like, it's like, it dissuades you from going down there when it's every little thing. But I think they outlawed resort fees now.
Mm.
So they're not doing that anymore, at least, because that was a lot of people were really mad about that because you pay what, like $50, something really inexpensive for the room. But then when you actually physically get there, they say, oh, and there's a $43 a day resort fee. It's like,
Yeah.
well, that's not a $50 room, you know? So I think people were not pleased about that, but I don't think they do those anymore. So that's one plus.
Yeah, the gambling thing is really interesting too because there seems to be a pretty healthy amount of vocal pushback to that now as well. Because men are just, I mean, if you're like a young guy with impulse control, forget it. What chance do you have? You have porn, you have, and I mean, women too have obviously their own stuff that they have to reckon, like what all the things we've talked about. But on the male side, their brains aren't fully developed, and the impulse control is very low generally, especially for like the 18 to 23-year-old men. And in those years of your brain is developing, you're getting addicted to gambling and getting addicted to porn. And I mean, I can't even imagine having to. I don't know. It would be really because you're just young, you're just partying and hanging out. I don't know how you like gambling addiction is gnarly. It is. I have recovered from a lot of things and I've known a lot of gambling addicts, and I would rather be a junkie in recovery than a gambling addict in recovery. The behavioral addictions are really, really hard to get over. And gambling is everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I see it all the time living here. Thankfully, I don't care for gambling. I just like don't really care for the slot machines or whatever. But it's really scares me to think that you can have your gambling on one screen, your OnlyFans on the other screen, and a geek bar in your hand, and you're just fueling all these addictions at the same time. Like that's literally the future we are setting ourselves up for, which
Uh,
is terrifying.
are you married?
No, I'm not married. I'm actually still dating. I had a boyfriend for a while, but I am
Ah.
yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the reason I was never able to find a partner was because I was peddling a pseudo dating website, and most men don't like that. But also just because I had no idea how to really find what I was looking for,
Mhm.
because, they I say they as in like the online dating websites, society, culture in general, like kind of tricks women into thinking that the way that they can get what they want is through their bodies and through their sexuality and through like over sexualization. And it took me a really long time to learn that none of that was true.
Yeah.
and and that the way to really get what you want is to withhold sex and to not be out here doing that. So yeah, I got off birth control like several years ago, but I went back on it and off it. And the last time I took it, I really realized how much it fundamentally changed me as a person to be on it, versus being off of it. And it's just like clarity is like 2020. Like I will never go back on hormonal birth control ever again because of how it completely changed. I was on birth control since I was 13.
Wow.
They and
I could
I think
never
that
tolerate it. Like I hated it. I never was on it. I hated it. I hated the way it made me feel. It made me feel insane. And so I just never, luckily, I was like, I hate this. And it wasn't as they hadn't really dialed it in the way they have and now. And so there was like one dose. It was the only dose. There weren't all these options. It wasn't like you could get a low dose. So I was just like, I hate this. I'm not taking it. And then I tried to go on it when I was with my first husband and again felt insane and was like, nope, we're not doing it. So luckily I never took it. They tried to put me on it again when they told me that I was in perimenopause early. And I was again like, "Oh, I hate birth control. I don't want to take it. I didn't take it. And I would not have my daughter if I had, which is nuts.
Oh,
Like
interesting.
my
Yeah,
natural resistance to my birth control is probably the reason I have a child now.
oh, well, blessings come in many packages.
Hmm.
Well, I think it's when I was young, I was 15 and they gave me the Depo-Provera shot because like originally the birth control, yeah, it made me crazy. And they're like, "Oh, well, instead of my doctor being like, maybe birth control isn't right for you." She was like, "Why don't you try a shot?" So
Yeah.
I took the Depo-Provera shot. It made me extremely unhinged. And so they're like, "Oh, that one isn't right for you." So I kept looking around and cooking on different birth controls until I found one that made me the least crazy. But it's funny because now they're doing like a class action against the Depo-Provera or whatever because I don't know, it like I guess causes cancer and like maybe that's why it makes you crazy because it's literally fostering cancer within your cells. Like I don't know.
I
But
wonder if
it's
that's why
yeah.
so many young women are getting cancer. There's like a big like uptake in 30-year-old women who suddenly have cancer. 30
Yeah.
something.
I mean, combined with all of the other crap they're feeding you and microplastics and PFOAs and all this other stuff, it's like, yeah, I think the compounding effects of those are hitting. And then combined with all of the tech and the Wi-Fi and the radiation and the microwave food and all of this, it's like the science isn't there. Sure, there's probably a lot of moral panic, but also we just don't have enough information to really tell like how all of these things are like combining. I've been like really careful about how I progress my like everything. Like I shut my Wi-Fi off at night. I'm like super careful about like using Bluetooth all the time. Just like all the things that they're kind of telling you, like maybe this is bad. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to even question it. I think it's bad. I think it's probably bad. So
You're like, I'm just defaulting to it's bad.
yeah, I mean, it's my own decision, for me. But I think even just not being so stressed about those things,
Hmm.
I think does make a difference. But yeah, the birth control makes a huge difference not being on that. I mean, like you said, it literally makes women crazy. And then they call us emotional and they wonder why we're so unhinged. It's like, well, maybe it's because I'm eating a little blue pill so that you can nut without remorse. Like,
Hmm.
who am I doing that for? Like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. Well, partially you're doing it for yourself so you don't end up having a baby or something. So I think they positioned it as a way for women to obviously have some control over a situation they didn't have control over. But there are other ways to do that too, like not having lots of sex with strangers.
That part. I think that is the more logical explanation and the one that they should have taught us, not necessarily abstinence, but not having casual sex. Like, I think that's what they should have taught young girls rather than shoving birth control down our throats and telling us we can have sex with whoever we want.
Yeah.
Because having sex with whoever I want, like you, it didn't benefit me. It
Yeah.
hurt me. So why are we still allowing that? Like, why are we still teaching that to people? I don't know.
Do you think they are still teaching it to the kids, the young
I
girls? Do you
mean,
think that's the messaging they're getting? Like what are the 13-year-olds hearing?
I don't know. I wonder. I don't know any 13-year-olds, but I mean, I think with OnlyFans, it's like young girls want attention from boys. I mean, women want attention from men, right? And playing on that desire for attention, whether it's through OnlyFans or through having sex or whatever it is, I think that's the part that needs to be reconsidered because you don't want attention from men. You don't care what they think. They don't care what you think. They don't care how you feel. They only care about what they want. So you should be more focused on what you want as opposed to caring what the heck they think because that'll only drive you insane, literally.
Yeah. Oh man.
So many heavy topics. I'm
I
sorry.
mean, no, it's good. It's so interesting. It's like it just is funny how I'm just sitting here thinking of how different this conversation is experientially because I have a daughter.
I
So
know. I
it's
saw you
like if I
talking
was
about
sitting
her
here
on.
without a daughter, I'd be like, whatever. And now it's just this sense of horror being like, oh God, I'm going to have to like deal with all of this. I'm not prepared for it at all. And I'm going to be
That
old trying to deal with it.
No, stop. I think the fact that you're even thinking about these kind of things, like, I mean, I already know from your content, like, you're an amazing mother, and I love the way you talk about your daughter. It's, like, so cute. I saw you on, like, the podcast, and you're like, "She is so sassy," and your husband said, like, "Well, that's gonna benefit you later," and she's like, "No, I'm it's benefiting me now." I'm like, "Oh my gosh," like, that was literally me. Like,
Yeah.
I was the sassiest little thing, and, yeah, no, I think even the fact that you're thinking about those types of things for her, so I have a friend, my best friend is a mother of 2 sets of twins under the age of 4
Oh
right now.
God.
So she has literally 4 times the little children.
Jesus.
So
God
the way
bless.
that she's so, like, amazing, like, the way she thinks about things and the way she thinks about even the littlest things like sharing and, like, well, we don't wanna make them a people pleaser, so it's like, yeah, you share, but after your turn is done, then you share. It's like these little, like, subliminal messages that you have to send to your kids to set them up for success. Like, even the fact that you're even thinking about that kind of stuff, I think you're leagues above most parents and especially, like, probably our generation of parents. So, you're doing great.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just a
Yeah.
little bit like, holy crap. I don't know how to I don't know what the world will look like. It's not gonna look like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, no, I don't have children. I mean, I aspire to have children, I think, but I've never been in, like, a position with a partner where I have ever wanted that with anyone.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of women my age are. I'm 33, so the biological clock is ticking, as it were. But I think there's just a sense of indifference with a lot of women, especially my age, who are just like, "Well, I'm not gonna do it alone."
Yeah.
Um, and I think there's, like, an overglorification of, like, women doing it alone, and, choosing to be single and this and that. It's like, well, I think one of the primary indicators of success for children is, like, both parents,
It's like
and
the biggest indicator. Like the
and
the biggest one is two parents who are together and in love
it
and
exactly, and I read somewhere that was like, what is the best thing a father can do for his kids? And it's love and support the mother.
mhm.
'Cause that's what it is you have to have 2 parents that love and support each other, and, that's how you foster a good child, so,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know anything about children, obviously, because I don't have one, but that is the only way I would have one is if I, was in a position where I knew that I had, like, the father to my children was gonna be there. So,
What's dating like?
it depends. I mean, like, a lot of people are struggling, because they I think, have this idea of modern dating, as being the way. And I have become more inclined to think that men need to be providers in order for the feminine and masculine dynamic to work out. Because, more and more I'm realizing if it's kind of a 50-50 scenario, then the woman is the boss because she is the vessel of life and the giver of all things. So therefore, if you're splitting things 50-50 financially, you are inclined because you're the vessel, then you're the boss, because all else is 50-50. So yeah, it's been difficult for me to come to terms with that because I was raised like to be very independent. But I think the more I lean into my feminine and don't settle and have very high standards, and care less about physical attributes of men because the hottest men are the ones who are the most jerks and have all the options.
Mhm.
So, leaning away from that and leaning into people who, actually have the qualities of like a good husband and a good father, has really helped me in the dating pool. So I have lots of eligible suitors,
Oh,
but
good.
it's may the best man win.
That's amazing. Yeah, I don't know. I've been seeing this like working. If that whole thing, we'll see, I guess. I mean, everybody I know who's kind of working class, normal, average family, they're both kind of caring for children and working. It seems like you need to, if you're like a working class family, you both need to be working. Um, and I know, like, those women are certainly not the bosses. I think, like, women are kind of always the boss. Most healthy relationships,
Yeah.
even the guys who last like, pay for everything in the old school men will joke that, like, I think it's a balance. There's, like, this whole very online discussion that it's a little bit, like, it's very online. I'm like,
Yeah.
normal people aren't having this discussion because they're just working and doing whatever it takes to make whatever works for their family. And I think it's very it's very much in line with where everything is in our culture to want to be like, well, I think like Matt Walsh about things where you're like, oh, the men need to provide and and like or like being a girl, like most men would want to be with a woman who's in working as a waitress and wants a family than a woman who's a girl boss. I'm like, that's not true. I know plenty of men who would want to be with the girl boss because they're status oriented and they want to be able to say that their wife works at Sony or whatever. Like, I know plenty of men who are with hyper creative women who have taken a step back to, my husband is one of them. I have many friends in this industry whose husbands have taken steps back to help support their wife and their endeavors, partially because we are in a position to scale more than they might be. So it's just what's best financially for the family, but also they're just supporting their wife's dreams. And I don't know that makes them, I don't know. I shy away from, I think most families are doing whatever they need to do. Like, I think most people in healthy marriages, I have a very wise
Oh, yeah.
aunt who is like, it's never going to be 50-50. It's just never going to be. There are going to be times where you're making 70% and they're making 30%. And then there will be a season in life where you're injured or sick or you can't do it and they're going to have to pick up the slack. And that is just the way a healthy marriage goes, is that two kind of are always coming into some balance with each other, but it's very rarely 50-50. Even if like even if you're 50-50 and she's working, you've got kids, you're still going to be picking up more of the slack if you're the mom, just because young kids in particular really need their moms more. I don't know.
Yeah, of course. I think it's obviously a case by case basis, and whatever works for families works for them. And kids change things so much, like
Yeah.
completely change the dynamic. And maybe what I think is not even true for families with kids, and I wouldn't know because I don't have any. But that's the same time, like I'm not doing anything, right? Like I do like have I wrote a book, like I
Yeah.
do have my own like aspirations, but I don't want a man to think that I bring anything financially to the table, and that's just what I believe, and that's how I believe that I can be soft, for him,
Mm.
is by not advertising myself as like a successful author, which I'm not really a successful author yet. I aspire to be a successful author, but yeah, I think it's up to families to decide what works best for them,
But wait,
and
don't
of
you feel like
course, like
that
you said.
do you feel like you have this I'm interested in this because I've seen like Megyn Kelly get in this like debate with Matt Walsh over the past couple of days. So this is very like tip of the spear in the culture, very online conversations, but I am interested in what you just said because it do you feel when you say do you feel like you have to make yourself small? Like, wouldn't you think like a man who loves you, who's like you guys fall in love, do you think he'll care if you make more money than him?
No, I don't think he would care at all, and I think it would be extra. But I think for a man to remain in his masculine and to desire to be better and aspire to provide, I think that whatever I make needs to be just extra.
That is a very where did this seems like it's the other side of this is like I get it. I understand I kind of get it. But
The antithesis of the girl boss.
well, yeah, I guess it's like some of the pushback of the antithesis of the girl boss, but it feels like um hold on, let me think of how like it still feels transactional. It just feels like the other side of transactional.
Again, I think different strokes for different folks. I
Mhm.
think what's gonna work for me and what I believe is certainly not gonna work for everyone, and I think there are a lot of people probably shuddering to think, of what I'm talking about right now. But for me, I just feel like men are going to disappoint me. And my standards in terms of how I want to be taken care of need to be very high, because men are going to disappoint me, and I am emotional. And to sort of remove that emotional element for me, there needs to be a provider element. So it kind of took me a really long time, and that is the way I have always felt, and that is what led me to the sugar daddy lifestyle. Is because that's just how I feel, and that's what has happened in my family is the men provide for the women. But the way that I saw it when I was younger, I was confused about that because I didn't understand why I felt that way and why it was like that. And so I leaned into the sugar daddy thing because I thought that, I just wanted this man to provide for me. I want a rich boyfriend. But what I found was soft prostitution, like you said,
Mhm.
which completely backfired and set me on a completely wrong trajectory because I was using sex in a way that it's not designed to be used.
Mhm.
And it's funny because like I mean I grew up with like Christian values and like like in the church or whatever. And I'm not religious now and I don't like go to church. I don't really lean into that. But a lot of the religious ideology in terms of like waiting to have sex until you're like in a committed relationship and you're being provided for and you're married or whatever, I feel like that is the way. And I think if I had leaned into that when I was younger, if I had been taught to lean into that, I would have be in a lot happier place now and probably would have hopefully been married and like been a lot happier. Because that's not for the church. That's not for, their ideology. That's for you. It's for you to be happy and for you to fulfill your purpose is to not have casual sex.
Mhm.
And I think it kind of brings it around full circle, which is why I like abstain. I like don't like have sex with any men unless they are, reaching a certain standard, unless they're investing in me. And that's just kind of how I've been living this new phase of my dating life, post seeking arrangement. But yeah, I mean, it took me a really long time to kind of come to these realizations. And yeah, I mean, what I realized is that sex is a tool, but we've been using it all wrong.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a tool. I mean, I guess like at its most utilitarian it is, but it's also just a expression of love when you're in love with someone. I don't know. Maybe I don't know that any of this matters when you're in love. Like I just don't know that you'll care if you make more money than him or like it won't it's still it feels like um
Transactional, I agree.
yeah, it's weird. It's weird because I understand it because only came from a different place where it was more like guilt around sex because was raised
Right.
Catholic. So there
The
was a lot of
Catholic
like
guilt, yeah.
shame and guilt around sex before I even had sex. And it was something that you withheld and it always appeared to me to be a little bit transactional even in teaching kids to like withhold it instead of teaching men and women that it's something kind of sacred and can be very ecstatic and bonding to do with your partner and to share with somebody. So it was more just like he won't like you if you give that away, which is a mentality that I'm seeing what you're saying more and more in the culture of well, I just, need to, like, my money can be extra, but I don't want to have to provide for myself, or like, I want him to feel like he's a provider, or he won't what? Love you? Like, if he doesn't feel like he's a provider, he won't fill in the blank.
Well, I think the sex part in the first place is lust. It's not love.
Mhm.
And I mean, I've never really been in love per se, so maybe I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, and I probably most of the time don't know what I'm talking about, but I'll just keep talking. Um, but I think that the love you feel over time, that changes. So you're not gonna be in lust forever, and the reason that you have sex the first time isn't gonna be the reason you have sex 20 years later.
Mhm.
So I think eh, because a man's role is to be the hero and to solve the problems and to be the provider, I think I the man needs to be the provider in order to have the woman remain in her feminine. And I'm not saying that that works for all men, but I'm saying that a lot of men would prefer their woman to be soft, and to not um, be so stressed, and your vibrational frequency is higher when you're not stressed out, from having to provide or having to work or having to be a domestic servant or whatever it might be. So yeah, I just think that that's what I think is gonna work for me.
Yeah.
So to be determined. We'll, let's reconvene once I'm married and we can have this discussion again.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've seen a lot of this lately, and I'm like, okay, so you've never ever met a woman who's married and doesn't have any income of her own and basically is on an allowance and is in a bad marriage and doesn't know what to do. Like, I feel like there are sides of this that people who are romanticizing, like, they forget why women were allowed to start working and having bank accounts. And a lot of it is because they had no power in these situations at all. And when, like, I don't understand actually how that is you're putting yourself in it's interesting. It's interesting. Like, we've come full circle in this conversation, because that sounds just like marital sugar daddying to me.
And I don't think I'll ever be in a position where I'm not making my own money, or I don't have my own savings, or I don't have something going for me. Like,
Yeah.
I wrote a book. I'm working on my own projects. Like, I don't ever plan on being completely beholden to a man and his finances. But I also know that my happiness comes from within me,
Mhm.
and a man isn't going to make me happy, and a man isn't going to fill that void. I need to fill that void for myself. And how I'm going to fill that void is by doing what I want to do, things that don't stress me out, things that fulfill my needs, my philanthropy, my activism. Those things are going to make me happy, and they're probably not necessarily going to make me a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I think it'll pan out for me eventually. There's lots of projects that I'm hoping do make me a lot of money. But at the same time, I think that my happiness with a man is going to come from what he can provide for me. And I don't think I'm going to love a man the same way I'm going to love myself. And the love that I feel for myself is what will make me happy,
Mm,
not the love I feel for him. He's going to be extra. So it kind of goes both ways.
interesting. I am fascinated.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's taken me a long time to unpack this, and I totally know that this is gonna set some people off. The comments are probably going to be ablaze with 50-50ers and whatever, and, like, more power to you. Like, whatever works for you. Like, you do that, you girl boss, you B4 movement or whatever it might be. Like, whatever works for you works for you.
I
I'm
don't
just
know
saying
that
that
it's girl boss though, 50-50. Like, I have to push back against
not you, I
that. But
mean.
no, I mean anyone. Like, I know family members where she's a nurse and he's a fireman. Like, is she a girl boss? I don't think so. I just push back against this idea that, like, a teacher and a guy who, like, that she's somehow a girl boss because she needs to make money to like pay for all their activities and kids stuff. I don't. I think a lot of it is like modern life, like the modern life demands two incomes in order for families to keep up. I don't know that makes like all these women girl bosses if they're going 50-50.
No, I agree with what you're saying, and I don't necessarily want to say that just because you go 50-50, that makes you a girl boss. But at the same time, I don't think that's what's right for me.
Yeah.
I see those relationships and I see the converse, and what I see for myself is a soft life. And I don't think a life where I have to work
Yeah.
to make money is the life that I want for myself. And I know that that's not true for everyone. And I know that that's not a choice for everyone. I know that's
Yeah.
not an option. I know that I am in a luxurious position to be able to have that option because I don't have kids, right?
Yeah.
Thanks to birth control, right? So it's, yeah, I totally see where you're coming from. And I'm not saying that that's like wrong in any way. I just think like people need to realize that, what's right for you or what's right for that man that you think you want might not be what's good for you. And
Yeah.
again, the 50-50 thing, like, who does that benefit? Does that benefit women or does that benefit men? And to me, it benefits men because, like, it's not my fault that you can't get your money up and you don't have enough money to provide for the woman that you want. And so if you're gonna call me a gold digger or call me names because you can't afford me, then okay, like, you do that, like, on to the next. But if you get in circles with people who actually do have money, they don't use the word gold digger because they think, "Well, yeah, obviously she likes me for my money, I like her for her tits, so what's the big deal?" And I think
This
once
is so
once men I mean, I'm sorry, I mean, I
no,
hate
it's
to
just so I feel like it's still so transactional. It's very like I don't know. I hope you find love. I just hope you
Thank
find love.
you.
That is what
I mean, different
that
strokes for
is what I
different
want for
folks.
you. I want you
Thank
to
you.
find a good man who does not disappoint you, which is what I feel like I've spent a long time assuming that every man would disappoint me, and I don't feel that anymore. So I hope you
I love that.
find that.
I
Yeah,
mean, I haven't ever found that yet. So maybe I'm just unlucky in love,
you'll
or
find
maybe
it.
yeah, maybe someday.
You
We'll
will.
see.
I think so. I
Thank
believe.
you. Thank you. I love that.
Yeah, that's yeah. You've been in Vegas a long time too. It's
Yeah, oh,
that's
yeah, that's certainly
it's
conditioned me in a lot of ways to feel a certain type of way. But I think it's like it's before that. Like my grandmother never worked a day in her life. So I think it is genetic,
yeah.
perhaps, you know?
So when you
It
say
well,
philanthropy and activism, what's your activism?
I work with anti-sex trafficking organizations to
Mm,
explain the perils of monetizing sexuality on the internet, the dangers of, you know, sugar daddy websites, the effects of prostitution. So I'm speaking at some conferences. I do work with World Without Exploitation, which is like a collective of different anti-sex trafficking organizations. There's the National Center on Sexual Exploitation, who's doing some really amazing work in this regard. Basically, that the thing they want people to understand is
yeah.
that one third of reports of sex trafficking, the origin of those places is a sugar daddy website. The most
Mm,
common way that you get sex trafficked is by someone you know, like a family member.
mhm.
But the second most common is through a sugar daddy website.
Wow.
So I think if people really understood that, and the other thing is people don't really understand what sex trafficking is. Like I got into a comment war with this girl, an OnlyFans creator, of course, who's like clearly a prostitute. And she was like, "Oh, well, I've never been sex trafficked before. I just go to parties and I just do this." I'm like, you got called to go to a party where you were then paid for sex by someone else. That's literally textbook sex trafficking. I'm like, you
Mm,
don't even know that you were trafficked. And sure, maybe it works out for you, but maybe it doesn't.
yeah.
So, like, I think people just need to understand that, and once I really break it down to them, like I broke it down to you on what's really going on these websites, you really see things much differently, and so that's what I seek to do. I have, like, some talks booked at different universities and such, so that's kind of what I wanna do is get on a university circuit. I
Yeah.
want to I wanna host, like, seminars called "How to Get a Sugar Daddy," and have all the girls come and then tell them the truth. I think
Uh,
that'd be fun, so that's kind of what's in the works.
you're gonna just bait and switch them like the guys on Sugar Daddy do.
Gotcha. Got 'em.
You're like, gotcha. And you know who else is gonna get you? A man on Sugar Daddy.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is, like, I don't seek to tell anyone, especially not a Gen Z, a college student, "Do you think my old crusty butt is gonna tell you what to do?" No. I
Yeah.
am not here to tell you what to do. I am here to tell you the truth, and you can make your own decisions, because that's the problem, is people are being lied to, like you mentioned in a lot of your writing, which that's the problem, is we were lied to. So, I
Mhm.
just wanna tell you the truth, and I have full confidence that especially young people will make the decision that's right for them. And if after knowing the truth, they choose to engage in prostitution or sugar daddy or OnlyFans or whatever, go for it. But as long as you know the truth first, then that is an actual empowered decision. But I think a fraction of people would actually make that choice if they truly knew the truth.
Yeah. Wow. What's your biggest defective character?
Overconfidence, probably. No, I don't know. That's a great question. Uh, I I have an issue with, like, flip-flopping on things, like, I'll be presented with new information, and I'll completely change my mind, like, which is actually unlike most people, I feel like, that like to live in these different echo chambers, which is why I love Breaking Points, which I'm sure you've seen Breaking Points, you watch Breaking Points. I had the
I don't
pleasure of
watch
going
it.
on Counterpoints. It's do you know what it is?
Yep.
It's a yeah, like an independent newscast,
Uh-huh.
and I love them because they completely break my thoughts all the time. Breaking
Mhm.
points, it's in the name, because they just go at it in these different arguments, and I'm just like, "Wow," like, I thought that I felt this type of way about it, but as I'm hearing more of these arguments, I certainly feel this type of way about it, and maybe my perspective will shift. So, I guess I'm a bit of a waffler, like I said, and maybe I'll feel completely different about everything I've just well, not everything, but about the relationship stuff. Like maybe I'll feel completely different in a few years. I don't know. But yeah, I practice indecisiveness regularly.
And what's your biggest asset?
Um, my grit and stick to itiveness. There was a lot of times when I thought that this book would never get published, and when I thought that no one would listen to me. And still, sometimes I have those days where I'm like, "Wow, does anyone give a shit?" But it's a micro movement every day, and I just keep chugging along and like getting closer and closer to my goals and my dreams. And they seem to be coming to fruition slower than I would have liked, but I'm just gonna keep on doing it.
And what are your goals and your dreams?
I want to bring this story to the big screen. So I'm working on a couple different productions. So I that's what I aspire to do as of right now. I also want to write another book and have some ideas about that. I want to start a Substack, just like you do. So I have a lot of aspirations. I of course want to find love, find a family or have a family.
Find a
So
family.
that find a family. I mean, maybe I'll find one. Who knows?
Yeah.
At this rate, I'll take what I can get. So yeah, I have lots of goals and dreams, personal and professional.
Amazing. Where can we find
Thank you.
you?
I am on Instagram at Brook Urick, BROOKURICK, and on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel where I do more of running my mouth. So if you have enjoyed this and if you have wanted to comment and tell me how wrong I am, why don't you go do it on my channel and subscribe while you're there?
We will we will put always be closing. We'll put that in the description too, so they can go
Oh,
find
thank you.
you.
And of course, my book is on Audible. I narrate it and I produced it myself.
Oh,
So
nice.
it's good. And of course, like Barnes and Noble, Amazon, like where you can buy the book. So do that too.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time. This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bridget. I'm such a fan. I love your work so much. So it was really fantastic to talk to you.
Nice to meet you too. Stay in touch and good luck with everything.
Thank you. You too. I
Thank
appreciate it.
you.
The check-in with Bridget and Cousin Maggie can now be found at PHETASY.com. It's been titled Another Round with Bridget Phetasy, and it's now in video.
This has been Walk-Ins Welcome with Bridget Phetasy. I'm Bridget Phetasy, and you're welcome. It's the dumbest line.